The Cincinnati Reds really need to focus on the top tier of available outfielders this offseason.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr. My co-host Steve Offenbaker will be along with me here shortly as we are going through the questions and the comments from our live show. If you got the chance to catch us live, this is a replay of the Q&A portion. In case you missed that, if you watched it, then hey, that's great too. But we get a lot into what the Reds are going to spend money on. If you missed yesterday's episode, we talked about the fact that Nick Krall said the Reds got money to spend. So what are they going to spend it on? We talk about the outfield. We look at the catching position here in a little bit. And later on in the show, look, we don't love this whole proposed golden at-bat idea that Rob Manfred has. We'll get into why a little bit later on. Thanks for joining us on this Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you today by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB to save $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's jump into this Q&A that we had with you guys.
All right, let's look at this. I want to take two comments in conjunction with each other here, Jeff, and then we'll kind of break them down. First, this from David S. He says, anything less than Hernández, Santander, or Profar is a loss and will be spending money just to spend money. The Reds have three options, period. Jinx comes back with this, and I am kind of agree with Jinx. Jinx says, I don't trust Profar. Having your one good season at 32 years old, the year before your free agency, is very risky. This is where I am. And it's why I keep only talking about Hernández and Santander. I don't want Profar in this group. Do you? Is Profar a viable option here? Because I'm looking at Profar right now, and up until the point where he went to San Diego, I'm not super duper impressed. I mean, he had some good numbers, but he really blew up once he went to San Diego. And he is, in fact, going to be playing in his age 32 season. I don't think this is the right move.
That is interesting because he kind of falls in line a little bit with the whole idea of what I talked about with Garrett Crochet yesterday. Now, there have been years past where Profar was decent, but he has never been as good as he was in 2024. And in fact, in 2023, he had a negative WAR season. So right before he blows up in 2024, he was negative in 2023. So he's always been a guy. And I remember back, because I played fantasy baseball back then. I don't play it as much as I used to, but back in 2012, he was a huge, big time prospect. Make sure you get him on your team because this guy's going to light the world on fire. And he never really did anything for the first 4 or 5 years of his career. And then he finally hits a little bit in 2018, and then he goes back onto the also Rans list. So he is an interesting player. I think that he would be a consolation. He'd be in the same group for me for Tyler O'Neill and Michael Conforto, guys like that, where they're consolations to me. And I did find that a little bit interesting, and I didn't mention this early on in the show, but in the same article where Mark Sheldon talks to Nick Krall, Mark Sheldon lists some potential outfield candidates that the Reds could go get. On the heels of Nick Krall saying, we're going to go get top talent for this lineup, the first name that Mark Sheldon put in his list was Michael Conforto. And I was like, no, he is a second or third tier player that we're looking at guys that should be much better than Michael Conforto here. Like what Nick Krall said, if he comes back and the big signing of the winter meetings is Michael Conforto, I will be disappointed.
So, Ryan was in the same thought process as you. Ryan Bates says, what about Tyler O'Neill? I thought he was a great option. Is he injured? Resigned somewhere? Not injured, not signed somewhere. I just don't know where I rank him. I look at his numbers and, sure, 31 home runs in 2024, age 29 season. That's great. It's not his first 30-plus home run season. 2021, he hit 34 bombs as well. But are we being unfair because he's a Cardinal? Are we being biased?
He's got a better career than Profar.
I'm not sure, because I want to tell you right now that automatically makes me not like you. And I'll be totally honest about that.
So
are we sleeping?
I'm not going to say
what I'm asking you.
I'm not going to say it's because of who he played for in the past. I'm going to say it's because of platoon splits. Dude doesn't hit right-handed pitching. He's got a 209 batting average last year in 283 at-bats against right-handed pitching. He only slugged 403. And I talked about how I didn't love the fact that Jesse Winker only slugged 405 for the season. That's what Tyler O'Neill did against right-handed pitching. So if you get Tyler O'Neill, he is the right-handed platoon to Jake Fraley or something like that. That's why I haven't listed him in my top tier. I list him as a also ran, a guy that if you get him, you better get somebody else too.
I don't know, Jeff. I
think if you get Tyler O'Neill, you need Max Kepler.
Lower tier. I don't even want to consider these lower tier options. I just want it to be Santander.
I just want it
to be.
That's the thing, though, right? And I hit on this the other day, where it's like we know what the Reds should do. What are the Reds most likely to do? I think we all know. You, me, folks in the comments section here, we all know what this team is prone to do in the offseason, where they say that things are ready to go, and then they go get Jeimer Candelario. And we're like, let's squint really hard and try and figure out how this works. I honestly believe that Nick Krall said what he said because he doesn't believe we're going to have to squint to see how this works out for the team. I think maybe I'm selling myself on this too much, but I think he said this with something in his back pocket ready to go, a move ready to make that is going to knock our socks off. I don't think he said this because he's about to go sign Tyler O'Neill.
Yeah, we're talking about, what's my thing, Jeff? Always the press conference deal, right? Like this is going to be a press conference.
Hand him his jersey. This is your jersey. This is your number. Like,
welcome to town.
That's not a Tyler O'Neill move.
I mean, it's too bad that they're going to hold the press conference at like Skyline, but that's something for another day. Oh boy, let's go to this. I may have just lost it. Here we go. This from Michael. Michael Blackman says, given the threat of a lockout, will any team be able to sign players to a contract longer than 2 or 3 years? The players are going to want to sign contracts longer than 2 or 3 years. Will there be some reluctance from the owners? For sure, the have-nots, the lower half of the league, are going to definitely want to not lock up giant long-term deals in order to see what they might benefit from under a new CBA. The Mets aren't going to care. The Dodgers aren't going to care. The Yankees aren't going to care. They're willing to basically mortgage the entire franchises right now to do what they've got to do. The Dodgers specifically, because I think they already know they're going to be bankrupt in 10 years. So why not just go all in? So I don't know that this is, I don't know. 2 to 3 year deals sounds right to me, though. I feel like that's where a lot of these deals are going to land, with the exception of like Juan Soto. Everybody else is going to get 2 or 3 year deals because of the looming CBA negotiations. And I think, Jeff, you and I are both in agreement that there's a lockout coming that's going to probably cost us an entire season of baseball.
Yeah, definitely don't love the idea of it, but that really seems like kind of what they're moving toward. And to his point, right now there's only one contract that's longer than 3 years. That's Blake Snell's to the Dodgers. They seem to have no problem giving out future money. They have a deferred payroll of $1 billion right now. But also, if you look at the contracts that are 3 years long, that still gets into the lockout period because the CBA is up at the end of the 2026 season. So if we see a lot of mitigated contracts where they are worried about lockout stuff, then we will see a lot of 2 and 1 year deals. If they're not worried about it, then they'll sign 3 or more. I think what's interesting about this, and the fact that the A's come in and sign a 3-year deal for Luis Severino still just boggles my mind a little bit. But they showed that if the A's are okay giving 20, what is that, 23? I can't do math on the fly very well.
Something it was like $67 million, so
22-ish million per year. I think that owners are more apt to give chunks of cash per year rather than long year contracts. So I think that's probably what the Reds will end up doing too. We might see our record free agent signing get bumped up this offseason. Like Trevor Bauer, he just isn't coming back. There's been lots of questions, and there's a very clear reason as to why. And it's not a subjective reason. We'll tell you next.
You can take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets, NFL tickets, NHL, NBA, all of the tickets. They got you covered over at Game Time. You just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Jeff and I tell you about this site all the time because we use it all the time. We head down to the banks, we post up at our favorite spot, get a couple drinks, have some food, and then right about time for first pitch, we jump on the Game Time app. We find our deal and we head into the ballpark. It's that easy. If you're heading to a stadium that you don't know, they have a view from your seat and you're going to know exactly what you're going to pay for that seat because they have all in pricing. Again, all you have to do is download that Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create your account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off already incredibly low prices. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right. I'm always very reticent to do this, but it's actually a good talking point. So to hell with it. Trevor Bauer is also an old friend of Tito's. He is healthy and ready to go on day one and will sign for super cheap. If
ironic, because I made a joke about this with Tim.
If a team is going to take a flyer on Trevor Bauer, because it's going to be a circus for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Not just the reasons, for a lot of reasons, it's going to be a circus. Francona might be the guy that it makes the most sense to have trying to manage that circus. That being said, Trevor Bauer's been blackballed by Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
There has been a meeting that we'll never know about, that we can never prove, that because basically it's illegal. But there's a decision that's been made. He's not coming back. He is not going to be allowed back into baseball. Does that mean they're being unfairly harsh from what we know about? Does that mean there's other things out there we don't know about? I don't know. But what I know is if you've got a talented former Cy Young winning pitcher that wants to pitch for league minimum and nobody is giving him league minimum, there's information we don't know. And I'm going to just leave it right there. And until Nick Krall looks in a camera again and says, we said we weren't, but now we might. Until that time comes, Trevor Bauer is not an option.
No, and it's not a question of if we agree with the blackball. It's the fact that 30 major league owners have gotten together and saying that this guy's not going to play for us. And if they're all in agreement, if the owners are in agreement for something, no matter how silly it may seem, that thing happens. It seems really weird that the Oakland A's left Oakland, but don't technically have a plan to build a stadium in Vegas. Like there's a thought of a plan. There's like a pre-plan, but 30 owners signed off on this. So the fact that they signed off on that, then it's not that hard to believe that they are all just like, no, we're not going to let this guy back into our club because it's a club. That's what the owners have set up, that if you work hard and if you do the things that they want you to do, you can be part of Major League Baseball. And for most players, that's not that hard to do. But Trevor Bauer upset whatever it is that they have built, and they will no longer let him into this. The NFL does this. The NBA does this. It is a professional sports thing. If owners make the decision, that's above Terry Francona's head. Like, I don't for one moment believe that Terry Francona can go to Bob Castellini and say, I want Trevor Bauer on this team, and that Bob Castellini is going to go against the 29 other owners and break that and let him in. There's something else that's to this that is above Terry Francona's head. It's above any of our heads for sure. We don't have any deciding power in this. But for anybody that is like, it's unfair to Trevor Bauer, it's hard for me to say yay or nay because it's not mine to say.
Yeah. This from Greg Hughes, circling back to the lockout, Jeff. Greg Hughes says they'll bring up minor league players, no lockout because of TV dollars, such and such. Something's different this time around, folks. The minor leagues are unionized. The minor leagues aren't going to come up. So
if there's a lockout, that includes them.
That includes the minors, folks. They're not going to be playing baseball. If there's to be baseball during a lockout, it's going to be because they held tryouts at Kroger and found enough people to field a team.
You're gonna let the Florence Y'alls play up.
It will be a true shutdown of baseball for a season. I don't see them fielding scab teams like they've done in the past. It'll be a shutdown, and it's going to be super painful. And I, at this point, Jeff, think it's necessary. The changes that baseball needs, this stuff that's going on with the Dodgers, it's ridiculous. The stuff that's going on where the haves, the big markets continue to just take every advantage they have and pervert it into being more of an advantage has to stop. And the only way that those changes can be made, those corrections can be made, is you threaten to take away those big markets' money altogether. And you do take away those big money's market altogether. So I see a lockout. I think a full season. I don't think it'll go more than that, but there's going to be a year lost. There's no way around it.
And I think that part of it's being paved because of Major League Baseball taking over broadcasting rights for so many teams. Like, they're centralizing revenue generation. And by doing that, they can then control it with a salary cap. So they're starting to take that away. Now, the big issue will be the big market teams, that they have their own channels, they have their own broadcasting companies, and they're making money hand over fist because of that. So that's an area that is above my head to understand, but I can kind of see this coming a little bit. I think that they are readying for that sort of a battle.
I'm gonna assume that Michael's responding to some kind of a catcher question in the chat that I missed, but Michael says he was a knothole catcher, and I feel like we haven't spent enough time talking about the lack of a backup catcher. We've talked about it some, but I'm at concerned point, Jeff. I'm a little worried that this has not been addressed, unless they already know they've got Luke Maile in their pocket and they're just waiting to like do the deal or whatever. This is a little worrisome for me that nobody has signed.
Yeah, I mean, Elias Diaz is still out there, but other than that, I'm not intrigued about anybody else. Like, Luke Maile didn't have a great season by any stretch, but the Reds aren't getting Danny Jansen to be a backup catcher. He wants to be a starter somewhere. And Spot Track has him at about $4-ish million, so maybe they could convince him to be a backup. James McCann, he's not going to be a backup. It's going to be Luke Maile or it's going to be Elias Diaz, because the other options are Yasmani Grandal, Kurt Casale, Carson Kelly, Tucker Barnhart, or Martin Maldonado. And Martin Maldonado is even older than Tucker Barnhart is.
Right. So, and you know, Jinx was asking about Barnhart and Wins. Wins maybe as an option, maybe. I think Barnhart's done, guys. Because they were out of contention last year, I would have loved to have seen the Reds called Tucker up at the end of September, just to let him have a little goodbye. But I think Tucker's done. You know, I think maybe he ends up a coach. I could see the Reds make him a coach already. That'd be great. But he's not going to be the team's backup catcher.
I don't know that I think he's done. I think he's still going to try, but I think that wherever he goes, it's going to be like a spring training invite. You know, work your way onto the major league roster. It's not going to be a major league contract.
All right, let's keep moving right along here, Jeffrey. There's still this narrative. I keep seeing this. Josh Pauly says Elly is a strikeout machine. Who cares?
He still did all that with the strikeouts.
I don't care. If he improves his numbers, and I think he will, and the outs that he does make come from strikeout more often than they do fly out or ground out, I don't care. What I care about is him improving his contact, being a little bit better from the right side of the plate, being smarter about when he steals, and continuing to improve his defense as to not make as many errors as he did last year. I don't care how he makes his outs. baseball has changed. You know, it used to be, right? You strike out and you go back in the dugout. You were embarrassed. You didn't want to face your teammates. Nobody cares. Those days are over. It doesn't matter.
No, and I think that there is a tendency to believe that because he's got such a high strikeout percentage that he's that much worse. But I mean, the league average strikeout rate last year was 22.6%. Like, we're not talking about guys that like Jake Fraley strikes out about 16% of the time. That makes him kind of rare. And I think that if Elly cuts out even just 1% of strikeouts, turns those into some kind of hits or even walks or something like that, he's in the MVP conversation. Like, he kind of was there for a minute last year, but when the Reds fell off and he kind of fell off a little bit there at the end of the season, I'm not worried about that at all. We're just not going to like this golden at-bat rule. It takes away from a key part of baseball. We'll tell you what that is next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need in one place when it comes to live bets in the NFL, because they've got stats, they've got scores, they've got all the biggest highlights and play-by-play and so much more, all on the same place that you make your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And while you're there, you can take a look at next year's odds to win the National League. FanDuel has the Reds at 33-1 odds to get that NL pennant. Those odds are actually the same as the St. Louis Cardinals and better than the San Francisco Giants. Very interesting. Obviously, they're still long, but there's always a shot. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
This is from John Park. Rob Manfred could institute a golden backstop rule, releasing the need for a catcher. If you did not see my rant against Rob Manfred, Manfred hates baseball. If you didn't catch my rant on the golden bat, the golden rule, whatever the hell he's calling that thing, Jeff clipped it. It's a short on the YouTube feed. I also shared it on the Locked On Reds Facebook and X. Go watch it, because I had a little bit of a meltdown, as I am want to do from time to time. Manfred needs to go, dude. I just can't.
It's well, and to be honest with you too, like, I feel like the other ideas that he has proposed that seem a bit radical, like, you know, automated strike zones and things like that, he's been super gung-ho about them. And then after they tried them, was at least honest about whether or not they worked. Because I remember that was a big thing before last season. And then throughout last season in the minors, they were like, you know what? This isn't working the way that we thought it was going to. And so I think, I hope they don't just institute this rule into Major League Baseball and just say, yep, it's here. We're dealing with it now. Like, I hope they try this in the minor leagues and see how goofy it ends up being, because it will, like, there's a charm about baseball. And I don't want baseball to lose that charm. Like, you build a team, and this will take the focus away from the team and put it on an individual. And I don't want that.
And also, it sets a very dangerous precedent. Where do you stop after that? If you know, one of the original
manager
rules,
a deck of cards and he gets to use them whenever he wants to.
It's you know, that's what that was you know, part of my rant with the Uno cards, right? Skip an at bat, do the things, make another guy bat for you. It's just, you know, where do you stop? At some point, maybe if you don't like this game that much, you should stop running it. And he doesn't like this game. He doesn't like anything about this game.
I bet the idea came to him while he was watching a game and there was somebody coming up to bat that he's just like, oh, this guy sucks. I wish so-and-so were coming up to bat. You know, what if we did that? You just got
First of all, you're giving him too much credit. He has no idea about those guys. He doesn't know. He doesn't care. Have you ever watched when they cut to him and he's at a game? He's not watching the game. He could care less.
It's true.
It just doesn't matter. I mean, for me, it's more about the moments that you lose. You know, I cited the Francisco Cabrera thing. You know, how many opening day home runs were from guys that you're like, really? That's the guy that's going to homer and win the game. And yet he does. And, you know, you would take that.
Does Javier Valentin get, the
he
opening
doesn't
day
get that
homer?
at bat. It's like
Roberto Hernandez. Like,
it's just, there's no, if they want to fix this game, they're going to have to address how much better pitching has gotten than hitting. And it's not that you get to golden at bat Aaron Judge up an extra time every day or whatever it is that you're going to do with that rule. You've got to figure out, if you want to make true adjustments, those are the adjustments. You're going to have to balance things out a little bit. There was a comment that went by there in the chat. I'm not going to scroll back to it, but it was basically what happened to all the 300 hitters. Well, the pitching happened to all the 300 hitters. Two things happened. The pitching has gotten so good that the hitters just can't adjust like they used to. I'll tell you right now, anybody that played Major League Baseball before 10 years ago, longer than 10 years back, never had to face the kind of pitching that guys are facing every single day from every single arm right now. The way that pitchers have learned to manipulate the baseball and make it dive and turn and do all while going 98 miles an hour is absolutely ridiculous. There was a time in baseball where changes were made to the mound. Changes are going to have to be made to the mound again. Whether you move it back, you change the height, whatever it is that you're going to do, there needs to be an equalizing moment right now if you want to get back to having consistent 300 hitters. Now, the other piece of this is a little bit on the hitters, is a focus, a premium is now being given to the home run. It used to be players just wanted to get a hit, get on base, get them on, get them over, get them in. Those days are done as well. Guys are trying to go long ball. The true outcomes are strikeout, home run, right? Like those are, that's it a lot of times.
Well,
so those are the two things. So you can, if you balance the advantage that the pitching has right now, maybe a little bit less focus is then paid on the homer and the league adjusts itself. But gimmicking your way out of the problems with the hitting is not a solution. And it's not something that you can do on a scale grand enough to bring back all of the 300 hitters. It's not there.
The thing I kind of go back to the comment about 300 hitters and stuff like that. What if I told you could have this hitter 243 or batting average 243, on base percentage 312, slugging percentage 399? You don't love that, right?
Right. And 399. That's where we quit paying attention, right? We're like, 399. No.
Right. And honestly, 312 on base is not good either. That's the league average hitter. That's the league slash line for last year. It is not great. And while I kind of poo-pooed Jonathan India's slugging percentage, he's basically a league average slugger at that point. And Jesse Winker's a little bit above league average at 405. Those kind of numbers, when you look on the back of somebody's baseball card and you go through their career and you were to see those kind of numbers, you'd be like, that was kind of a down year for him. It's a down year for the entire league at the plate. Pitching is just so dominant now.
Let's end with this.
Yeah.
Sorry. I thought you were done with your thought, but let's end with this, Jeff. Yeah. From Jeff. Jeff Frazier says, the lack of real left-handed power hitters. Do you see the Reds possibly moving the right field fences back? The pitchers would love that. I am not opposed to configuration changes at Great American Ballpark. The dimensions down the right field line were set for Ken Griffey Jr., who's finally been paid off. Now, I guess maybe you had to keep the fences while he was still on the payroll. Anyway, he's off the payroll. I'm not opposed to changing the dimensions as long as they don't mess with my spot. And you guys know my spot's down right field. So as long as it doesn't mess with my spot, I'm okay.
Maybe just raise the wall a little bit. I don't know. Like, I know that the Orioles have messed with the dimensions of their ballpark a couple of times since Camden Yards has been and the Reds have never done that. So maybe there's something to that. Although I think that they would be reticent to lose seats. So they would probably just raise the wall and raise the seats up and all that good stuff. But I don't think that is something they'll do in the near future, though.
All right, guys, let's end there. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks so much for joining us live here on YouTube. We appreciate you. Get in the comment section, click the like button, click the notification bell, subscribe. If you can't be here on YouTube with us, we're on all the audio feeds as well. Subscribe over there. Take us to the gym, take us in the car, take us wherever you're going, and get your 30 minutes of Reds baseball every single day. Now that you've made us your first listen, go make Sully over at the Locked On MLB podcast your second listen. Paul Francis Sullivan, he knows a lot about baseball, guys, and he's fun to talk to. He's fun to listen to. Funny guy. Lot of good baseball information over there. Go check it out. Link for his show down in our show description today. Until next time, we're going to keep gathering up the news, the rumors, the information. We're going to pay attention to what Nick Krall's saying for sure now. We're going to gather all that up and bring it back here to keep you locked on Reds every single day.
Go get shopping, Nick.